Okay. All right. Welcome back, Brendan Lee, coming to us
Good to be here.
from London.
From sunny, warm London.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is it really? I don't believe that.
No,
I
not
lived
at all.
there for a
It's
decade.
actually,
I lived there for 10 years, and there were 5 sunny days.
yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. I could probably believe that. It's pretty, yeah, it's cold and it's rainy but hey, that's
Good
London,
fun.
right?
That is
Come
London.
here.
It's my favourite city on
Honestly,
the
it's
planet.
actually nice to be out of the heat and humidity of Brisbane for a few days. So
Back to the mother country for you, then, is it? Yeah, they let you back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you're there for the Coingeek conference, all very exciting. One of my teams on a plane as we speak, actually.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So you'll meet her no doubt in the next couple of days. I'll put a little clip on here, so anyone at the conference, please go and say hello to Maggie. Make her feel welcome. She's very excited. I don't think there's too many people on this planet that have researched Dr. Craig Wright's background in as much detail as she has.
Sure. Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, though she's become quite pally with Lisa Edwards, his sister. So you'll see the two of them knocking around there together. Make sure you say hello. So Brendan, yeah, look, thanks for joining us again. The chats we've been having have been very helpful for me to learn what's happening at BSV going into the series where I'm taking on the unenviable task of trying to explain to a wider public what Bitcoin is. Seems to we've had another sort of twist in the tail. I'm talking to Roger Ver on Friday. There's obviously a bit of action in that camp at the moment, so it's more to learn in preparation for that conversation. But Here you are with me today, and I'd love to, if you can tell us about the conference to begin with. What's coming up there?
Well, I guess this is the first conference that we've had post the Genesis upgrade. And I think most of what we're going to be discussing at the conference is what people are building and what is possible now that we have, removed a lot of those protocol level limits that were pushed into Bitcoin. And we're already starting to see lots of people creating transactions on the network that are using complex scripts, R puzzles, things like this, pushing much larger data items. I've already seen a few transactions that are kind of up in the several hundreds of kilobytes going onto the network. So, I think it's with the current, what are we calling them? Like minor policies that have been implemented on the majority of nodes. I think it is possible at the moment to send up to 10 megabytes in a single transaction. Wow. But I don't think we've seen anyone do that yet. But, it won't be long. These things never take more than a few weeks, and then somebody's out there smashing the network with huge files and whatever. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So just sort of recapping on that for anyone sort of new coming onto this content, just talk us through once again in really basic terms what's just happened on BSV.
Well, so over the history of Bitcoin, since Satoshi left the project back in 2010, it was basically the keys to the code base for the primary mining client were handed to a few developers who thought they knew better than everybody else what Bitcoin should be and how it should work. And
is that Gavin Andreasen you're talking about?
Well, not necessarily him. I don't know if he was actually actively developing that code base, but
no, he was more theoretical, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't really want to name any names, but they basically spent a long time thinking about ways to restrict how people use Bitcoin. And I don't particularly want to ascribe any malice to what they did. I think a lot of them thought that they were doing the right thing, and basically putting barriers in front of people to prevent them from using a lot of these amazing features that are available in Bitcoin. And, when you start to really look at that Bitcoin scripting language that we have and what's possible with that, you start to see that actually this thing is really, it's a bit of a beast. And if you can pair it with the right kind of application layer clients that sit off chain and use that scripting language as an interface to the ledger, then you know, some pretty amazing stuff is possible. And we're already starting to see that happening. So recently we had a new wallet that was released called Laxo, and it's actually using a technique called threshold signatures. And what happens with that is you create a wallet. There's no seed words or anything. It's just username and password. And the key is actually distributed throughout a large group of what they call trust holds. And then every time you want to do a transaction, you reach out to the trust holds. You've got to get a certain number of them to sign your transaction. And this is the beginning, I think, of how we're going to see banking services and things like this evolve to using Bitcoin and making it just so much more simple and lowering that barrier of entry for people. Because I know I've set up people with wallets, and you know, you go through that process of writing down the words, and you know, you tell them you've got to keep these safe. Yep. And you go back to them 6 months later and you say, well, what have you done with those words? And they don't even remember, you know. So it's
look, that's actually a little, sort of maybe go a little bit off topic here, but just while you sort of brought that up, I've, as you know, I'm making a series to help bring a bit more knowledge to people outside of crypto and hopefully sort of coach them in. And in that process, I feel I'm sort of giving a fair and equal time to the various, you know, projects that I rate. And at the moment, it's, you know, the three incarnations of Bitcoin, so to speak. You know, it's, but the great news is we're going into full production next week, and that's hugely being facilitated by having a sponsor. And the sponsor is, it's actually a prepaid crypto card. So never, you know, going back a couple of years, I really didn't think, okay, how's a credit card going to be relevant to the use of Bitcoin? You know, almost in a way is sort of the opposite of what I suppose crypto sort of set out to do. But the reality for me is I absolutely see a use case here. If I take myself, for example, I'm probably not going to play the real estate game as an investments. I'm going to be absolutely 100% investing in what I see taking place in the distributed ledgers space. And, you know, a couple of these key protocols, BSV being one of them, is you know, absolutely something I'm looking very closely at. But the ability to be paid right now and to immediately be able to use a cryptocurrency, I still think is somewhat limited. I know that should change quickly, but what are your views on these prepaid crypto cards? You know, for me, bang, here you go. I can book an airfare. I can be paid in crypto. It's on this card immediately, anywhere MasterCard's accepted, I can use it. What are your thoughts around that?
For me, so I'm primarily paid in Bitcoin for the work I do. You know, I think probably 80 or 90% of my income over the last couple of years has been exclusively in Bitcoin.
Yep, likewise.
And trying to take that and then use it to have a somewhat normal life where you can go to the shops and buy stuff, and you really, you know, what I've ended up having to do is basically just be selling it and using it through that traditional banking system.
Yeah.
So to have something that was as convenient as a Visa card, that I could go into the shops and just swipe or tap on the machine or however it works,
yep,
and be drawing from those funds that are held directly in Bitcoin and not having to, you know, do those capital gains events, which is, you know, basically every time you're selling
yep,
crypto or every time you're selling Bitcoin or whatever it is that you're holding that and translating it into dollars, there's tax implications.
Correct.
That just makes that so much more simple. You know, I strongly support those kinds of efforts. And
well, I like this particular
that we're
one.
going to see a lot more of.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be good to for you guys to have a look at this particular company I'm talking to. I'm sort of going through a process right now where what I do like about them is compared to some of these other solutions that are there, they haven't had an ICO. There's no token that's involved in this particular project. So, you know, I like it for that reason. Some of these other ones I kind of question, whether the deal almost seems a little too good to be true. And to me, that sort of may be coming about via the way they've structured things with having to buy their token, then you have this card, etc. The word Ponzi springs to mind. But we'll see. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I'm sort of comparing the different offerings out there at the moment, but the company that I'm talking to at the moment I like, and I'll share that with yourself over the coming weeks. But yeah, so coming back to what do you think's coming out of the conference? What's exciting you? Who are the main people you're looking forward to seeing?
Well, so there's been a lot of fireworks on Twitter with Jimmy Wales. So he's the creator of Wikipedia.
Yep.
He's going to be presenting at the conference, and he's also doing a panel talk with Craig Wright. I think that is, Wikipedia, you love it or hate it, you've got to admit that it's actually been a website that really has changed people's understanding of what's possible on the internet, and it's a huge knowledge base. I've used it myself extensively over the years. I've given to Jimmy every time he does his donation drives. I'm always like, okay, here's $5.
Brendan, are you aware that they used to accept Bitcoin? And they actually canned it because donations decreased when they were using it, because it confused people. I mean, this sort of comes back to maybe what we were just talking about here with the simplicity of a preloaded credit card at this point in time.
I wrote to them and tried to get them to accept Bitcoin Cash back when we were, Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah.
But they weren't interested at all. But I hope to learn something from Jimmy, but more importantly, I really hope that Jimmy learns something from being at the conference, because I think he has a very strong set of preconceived notions about what Bitcoin is and how it works. And I think that there is definitely something there, with the Metanet and the way that works. It actually is almost a match made in heaven, the way Wiki is structured with, pages as nodes and links out to other pages and things like that.
Yeah.
You can build exactly that with Bitcoin and with the Metanet. So
yeah, cool. So another thing that I'm looking at doing in my series is really sort of keeping things very basic for the audience, and I'm going to use my company Hard Forking as an example of some of the things that we can do on blockchains now, and I'm going to tokenize the equity in the company. Now, a lot of people have heard this STO, etc., and I think there's already people out there who are using it as to pull the wool over people's eyes yet again, as we saw in the ICO frenzy. So maybe we could have a bit of a chat on tokenization and what security tokens are and what functionality the BSV blockchain is going to offer in this space, and why would people use it?
I think there is actually, and especially inside the crypto space, there's a lot of, actual real misunderstandings of what tokens are. And so, there is no value in just having a token. The token has to translate to an ownership right or a right to receive a good or a service in the real world. And that is true for any kind of token, including the Satoshis that we exchange on the Bitcoin network. And so you can make the argument that the Satoshis that we exchange on the Bitcoin network are a future right to access and write to the Bitcoin ledger. And that the value of a Satoshi token is related to the amount of ledger space that you can buy with that token. And that as we scale the network and miners actually start dropping the fees in terms of Satoshis per byte, that's actually driving value into those tokens. And, the same is true. So if you were to go and create an equity token that represents ownership rights in your company, then you're legally binding yourself to that token, you're binding your company to that token, and the people who hold that token would actually be real world owners of your company and have a right to share in profits and however you choose to manage that. And I think that's something that people who have been creating, especially these ICO tokens, where it's like, well, we'll create a token and people will buy the token because they expect the token to have value.
Yep.
But really, there is no value in just a token. If the token doesn't represent something that you can later come back and exchange it for that has a real world value or applicability, then it's worthless.
Yeah.
And you know, the amount of money that you see going into these, and with the huge pump and dumps that we've seen, that is rampant speculation. And so there is, you know, quote unquote value that is pushed into those networks through that speculation, but it is just as quickly removed. Yeah. And what you find at the end is that really there is no value in those tokens. And unless they're actually breaking an asset that exists in the real world into small pieces and selling the rights to that asset, they're not really doing anything. And
so you've described a security token there with that last definition, haven't you? As you know, that's sort of always been the
same is
issue
true for
with
any kind of token. Like, so if you think of a ticket or a loyalty point. Now, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's said about oh, well, token, you know, if you run them on Ethereum, then, and the smart contracts on Ethereum, then it's completely decentralized. And actually, we, the issuers of the token, we're not even in control of that. Well, that's actually a scam. That's them saying, hey, we've just thrown this out, and actually we're just going to dump and leave, and you guys who bought it, that's yours now. And they're basically writing themselves out of having any responsibility for what happens to that.
So there's a lot to learn with you guys, isn't there? And you're going to have to take me on some baby steps over the coming weeks to help them educate my audience, because obviously, you know, it's pretty exciting times for to be covering what's happening in BSV. You know, having been around the block size debate and all the emotion and drama and so forth that's gone along with it, to now see your project actually, you know, do what's been debated for so long. And
yeah, exactly. I think, you know, we see people going, oh, well, this upgrade, you know, we saw the node count on BSV drop from whatever it was to whatever it is now. And to me, that's a null argument. You know, there is no value in node count, because I can go onto Google today and I can spin up 1,000 nodes, and wow, all of a sudden BSV has 1,000 more nodes on the network. Yeah. But what are those nodes actually doing? They're not doing anything. They're actually just dead weight, holding the network back.
Brendan, question. So, you know, if we go back to some pre-SegWit, where you know the debate was very much sort of centered around, you know, SegWit's obviously given us what, 2.3 megabits, I believe.
Something.
But but really the rationale there was that, you know, the core team behind that, their argument was that it was all to do with security and safety. Obviously, you guys have you know, taken the step into what was being debated at the time. Could the network hard fork to you know, to a much larger block size, or you know, let the miners decide? What, you know, could you talk us through that concern back then, and what you've actually just seen happen? Was it all unfounded? What, you know, was this nail biting stuff for you guys? What, you know, obviously there was huge drama around this. It just seems to have all come off quite smoothly. I'm a little confused.
Look, clearly, you know, what we are attempting to achieve here is not simple. And we have very large numbers of highly qualified people working their fingers to the bone, you know, making this happen. It's not something where we just changed a few settings and all of a sudden everything just got bigger.
No.
This has been an exercise in very, very carefully planned engineering. The Bitcoin SV node client has undergone some of the most stringent code security tests that we've been, well, not we, but they have been able to basically buy the services of. You know, they've got some very, very highly qualified people to come in and audit the code line by line. And they found, you know, even things that wouldn't have impacted any part of the performance of the network, those guys found it, and they've been fixed. And that's happening for every upgrade that happens. Every line of code that gets added or removed from the code base is analyzed, and to make sure that everything is being done very properly and with a view to ensuring that this thing is secure. Now, that doesn't mean that if all of a sudden we had 1 billion transactions hit the network tomorrow, that things wouldn't, you know, go awry. But what we are fairly certain of is that unless we all of a sudden get a 100x demand in transactions in the next week, that at the current demand and at the current pace of growth, we have a lot of breathing room in what's being developed to maintain the consistent performance of the network.
Sure. So I see you've got a bolt of lightning behind you. What you're saying is you won't be using the lightning network, obviously.
No, that's not what's going on. So this is the Taal volcano from the Philippines. Which erupted about I don't know, a couple of months ago, and thought that was a pretty cool pic.
I saw that. That was in the backyard of one of your crew's houses, Kelvin Ear's place, wasn't it?
I think he has a villa very close to there, and he did post a few photos of his villa, which was, you know, got buried under kind of 6 inches of ash.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, but the Squire Mining Company, which I believe he's a part owner of, has recently renamed to Taal. I don't know if it's directly related to this volcano, but I just thought that was an interesting.
That's definitely an upcoming chat for us. You know, I'm sort of, you know, understanding the, you know, the game theory and the economic model around mining and how that's different with what's happening at BSV now. So
we need about 6 of these sessions to really get into it, I think.
No kidding.
But for me, that's actually one of the most interesting aspects of mining, and how that, I don't know if you're familiar with the term Red Queen game, how basically the miners must be keeping up with each other, otherwise they're just falling behind. And we've seen that happen with a few who were quite large miners. So, and this is, I'm going to mention his name again, Roger Ver. His Bitcoin.com mining pool used to be, you know, around 10 or 15% of the mining on Bitcoin Cash, but it doesn't seem that they've been keeping up, and they're now, I think, less than 2% of the blocks being found on that network. So it really goes to show that if you're not ready to basically plow everything that you're getting back into it, and the, you know, the profit margins on that industry are super slim.
As I say, I'm actually I'm talking with Roger on Friday. I've, you know, it's having covered Bitcoin for 4 years. I feel a little bit bad actually that I probably didn't really delve into BCH as much as I should have. It's a funny one because the BTC community to a certain degree shunned me when they saw the name hard forking and assumed I was a Bitcoin Cash site. Which I wasn't. So obviously I've really sort of learned a hell of a lot about what's happening at BSV, and I've been very impressed. So I'm sort of trying to play a little bit of catch up on what is happening at Bitcoin Cash. Could you maybe give me your thoughts on why that split with BSV and BCH actually happened in very sort of brief, basic terms for newbies to understand? Just trying to get as many different perspectives as possible as I attempt to explain that to a non-technical public.
Sure. There were a couple of, I think, main reasons. The first was that, so the developers of the Bitcoin ABC mining client and also Bitcoin Unlimited, although Bitcoin Unlimited sort of sat on the fence, they kind of stayed out of it, but they wanted to pursue some changes to the structure of Bitcoin blocks and the Bitcoin scripting language that actually, to me, would have really made it not Bitcoin anymore. So they wanted to basically force miners to line all of the transactions in the Merkle tree that's inside the block up in for want of a better term, kind of alphabetical order. So basically in order from lowest transaction hash to highest. And we kept trying to tell them, guys, you know, when we scale this to, you know, billions of transactions in a block, this is a massive, massive overhead on miners to try and manage that. And it's really going to cause huge problems for the system. And they ended up then proposing even a different tree structure that would no longer be a Merkle tree to manage that. And to me, that was just anathema to everything that is Bitcoin, which is a stability that you can kind of bank on, that you can go away and come back in 10, 20, 50 years, and the system still works the same. And even though it's much, much grander and many, many times larger, all of those fundamental things about how the system works haven't changed. And that includes the scripting language. And that would mean we're not adding new stuff. And they were also changing the existing opcodes. And there's still things that they did which we have not been able to unpick. And so there are opcodes that used to be in the Bitcoin scripting language that we no longer have because they got in there and changed them before we could do anything about it. And I think the main argument was that we wanted a fixed protocol, we wanted to scale, we wanted to go big, we wanted to go straight for 128 megabyte blocks, and with a roadmap to get to where we are now, which is unlimited blocks. And Bitcoin ABC basically said, no, we don't need that yet. We don't even have 1 megabyte blocks regularly. Why would we need 2000 megabyte blocks? 32 is fine. We're going to pursue all of these other changes to the protocol before we undo those limits. And so that, I think, was the primary reason that the Bitcoin SV node client was forked from Bitcoin ABC and put together, and then basically used not as a vehicle to shed those changes and not allow them to get into Bitcoin. And then at the time of that upgrade, you had both node clients with a different set of rules that were going to be applied after the block. Yep. And basically that's what happened. So miners on the Bitcoin Cash chain copied the Bitcoin database and started mining on top with that new rule set that to me meant that they are no longer Bitcoin. So
was there any form of what was the feeling when that split happened? Was it disappointment, or was there a lot of anger involved? I mean, I saw it was Roger Vere's birthday the other day, and I saw some guys from your community just not exactly saying happy birthday to it. Pretty nasty, actually. I was a little bit in the thick of it. I was with Esson. We were running the stress test so we had started out running those on the Bitcoin Cash network, and then after the Bitcoin Cash network split and started doing its own thing, we just focused on testing the Bitcoin SV. But I think mainly it was yes, it was a little bit disappointing that they had done that they had been so boneheaded about implementing their own ideas that they just had to go and create a whole new coin and a whole new network and a whole new ledger, that they would go and do that and separate themselves from us. But at the same time, it was also a little bit of relief, because within that Bitcoin Cash community that we had prior to the split, things had become extremely toxic. And you had people being banned from this chat room and that chat room, and basically lining up on each side of the battlefield. And after the split, you know, God came down and carved the land apart and put an ocean between us. And it's actually been really good. Bitcoin SV has come together beautifully. I think the community, the disagreements, nobody is now saying we need to make any changes at all to Bitcoin. And now the disagreements tend to be much more about, well, how do you start a business on BSV? Is it better to go out and get venture funding, or is it better to start really small and build your customer base
and get revenue and use that to build it. And you know, we have people arguing about much more about capitalism and about Bitcoin as an economic system, and the arguments about the actual protocol itself are gone. And that's what we wanted. So, yeah, I think it was a net positive outcome in my mind. It did set us back in a lot of ways. So we certainly were starting to see much more retail adoption of Bitcoin Cash, people using it in those kinds of day-to-day scenarios. And that kind of, especially, I think they kept pursuing that in Bitcoin Cash, but in Bitcoin SV, that just became so much harder for us because you'd have to go in and say, look, the name's changed, all of this stuff. And so that set us back in a lot of regards in that way. But
how does it feel for you now? I mean, so SV is, what have we come up, about 18 months now? November 2018?
Yeah, not quite. It's about 16 or 14 or 16 months or something like that.
Does it feel like this is sort of a new beginning, or does it feel like a continuation with a change, or what's the emotion at the moment?
I think certainly for a lot of people, it felt like a clean start, and it felt like that with that removal of that toxicity and that having to just spend all day arguing about the protocol, and now that is all swept aside, everyone can now actually focus on the next steps, which is how to build on Bitcoin.
Okay.
And I think there's no matter what side you're on of that argument about, you know, capital and whatever, there's palpable excitement about what people are doing and the ways they're coming in and really.
Now you can compete against each other to build on it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We're not competing against each other to make a whole new network and a new coin and then get it listed on exchanges and blah, blah, blah. All that is what is wrong with crypto.
Yeah.
You know, that is completely just, it's not going to go anywhere because you're arguing, oh, EOS versus Ethereum versus la, 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 la. Nothing ever gets done. And so now that we have a platform and the platform is ready to support everyone, we can all start building off in different directions. And that's the exciting thing for me, is that stability at the core of the network.
Yeah, I didn't, you know, I've been in the space for 4 years now. I'm completely immersed in it, so it feels like a hell of a lot longer. But, you know, I thought we would probably be a little further ahead than we currently are. But I certainly have a feeling that things are going to move very rapidly. From this point.
I think we're going to start seeing some really quite major enterprise use happening within the next 12 months. There's a few big announcements happening at Coingeek, which I'm not going to spoil here on this.
Number go up, people. Number go up. Warning.
I think that, look, nobody's going to be talking about number go up, but I think the excitement that's going to come from a lot of these announcements is going to result in some number go up. So, yeah, I think...
That's not financial advice, by the way.
No,
I've made the blunder of saying I'm not going to hold crypto while I'm putting my series out, so I've got to hurry up and get the entire series done. Yeah, I think it's exciting times now. You know, it's been a pretty tough couple of years, really, hasn't it, for sort of all serious players involved in this space.
Yeah. I tell you what, I kind of blundered in about, you know, kind of mid to late 2017, and I really had no idea what was going on, and to kind of walk into the middle of this battlefield and be like, shit, what's going on? But, you know, I'll back myself to have, you know, a very good understanding of how the system works and be able to explain it as well as just about anybody else. And I'm here because to me, this is the only way forward that makes sense in a way that we are going to be able to build on this to make a real impact on society and change people's lives, the way money is used for them and by them,
Yep.
and really driving value into places that it really doesn't exist today, and or certainly not for the user. You know, we were having a really interesting conversation in the office today about, you know, how does Facebook have 50,000 engineers, but the product that they offer is so kind of like simple. It doesn't really do that much.
Yep.
And the conversation then went, well, because that's not the product. That's like the gateway to gather the information for the real product, which is the advertising platform.
Yep.
And we're being sold out from underneath ourselves by these companies. And when
Facebook's kind of, that platform's really dying off now, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. I think people are really waking up.
Yeah.
And to have now a system where you can own the data, you can own every single thing that you ever put onto the ledger, and you can exert ownership rights, you know, who to share it with, how to share it, how that gets monetized. That's really going to change everything in terms of social media, in terms of the way we interact with people and advertisers. You know, I'm not here to say advertising is bad, but I am here to say that the way that we are being packaged as frozen goods and sold to advertisers is bad. And
couldn't agree more. Yeah. No,
and we can change that. Yeah. You know, this is what we're starting.
Yeah. So just sort of looking at the space in general. One thing that's kind of shocked me actually is the guy from Dropbit who was arrested and is facing 30 years in a federal prison for offering a coin mixing service. You know, there's some really strong signaling going on there, putting it mildly. I mean, Matt Corallo is obviously one of the very few people that sort of commented quite strongly on it publicly. I think everyone else in the developer community there is probably in a bit of shock at the moment. What are your thoughts around that? And maybe what's the situation with BSV? Could a wallet actually offer a mixing service there or a coin join on the BSV network?
Absolutely, they can. And I think that that's actually a space where there is something that of material value that can be provided to people, because there are people out there that have substantial Bitcoin holdings. And, you know, one of the things that happens when you transact with somebody is that your wallet pulls from those holdings and gives to that person. And you may not necessarily want to show that person the extent of money that you've got held in a coin that you're using to transact with them.
Yep.
And a mixing service is a really great way to shield yourself from having to provide that information. But the problem with that, the service that guy created was that it was designed to hide that information from everybody. And so it's a system where you really have, before you are allowed to mix any coins, you've got to do like an AML, so an anti-money laundering KYC process.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, though, it's very easy to see those systems, and regardless of whether this was their intention, from a government perspective, you would look at that system and say, well, this is just money laundering. This is a way for people to mix the coins such that we can never see where they came from. And this could be used to hide funds from any kind of illicit industry. But if you've done a KYC AML process, you've registered with the platform, and you're mixing the coins that you're using to transact with people and companies, but there's still a process of you being identified, and then that to me is okay. And I don't think you would get much or any pushback from regulators.
No, well, you've just described a standard bank account with that scenario. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, you know, for me, we've obviously had, you know, we've touched on the whole sort of privacy and anonymity spectrum before. And you know, it's clearly going to be the defining issue, I think, over the next couple of years as to how the industry as a whole shapes up. And It's fascinating to see where that's going to go.
It's amazing how often these conversations can actually go all the way back to the Bitcoin white paper. And if you go back to the Bitcoin white paper and read what Satoshi said in there about identity and about privacy and trusted third parties, it really becomes very clear that this was not a system to completely mask yourself and anonymize yourself from everybody and to be able to do whatever you want with money that you got, no matter how you got it. And I think that is one of the core misunderstandings that people have about the nature of this system.
Yeah. Oh, clearly. I think it's only sort of been the last 6 months it seems to have become a, by the way.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Is a lot of the arguments that we get from especially BTC and BCH is that no, that's what Satoshi intended, was for us to be able to be anonymous. And you've got people going, oh, I should be able to use Bitcoin to bribe people and buy illegal things and do things that harm, have material harm against other people.
Yeah.
And it should be untraceable, and I should be able to do that. And to me, that's just completely anathema to what I want to see in any kind of money system that's widely used. So I
suppose the big one for me that does concern me is when we reach a point where cash is completely removed from from an economy that I'm sort of living in. That worries me, and how we'll retain human dignity in a scenario like that. I mean, when I look at what's happening in China with social scoring, etc., there is the possibility of totalitarianism coming in, big time in that scenario. But where the use case for crypto, for illicit activities, etc., and I just don't see it. And why cash exists, that's what criminals are going to use. If you're using a blockchain for dodgy activities, you're pretty much asking to get caught.
I think cash exists because it's convenient, and there was simply no means to attach these kinds of. But there's a reason that cash also has a serial number, and that makes it traceable.
Well, this is also true. Yeah. True. Yeah, well, the Chinese are getting rid of cash to get rid of the coronavirus at the moment as well.
Yeah, right. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some major countries really starting to actually try to materially restrict the use of cash.
Absolutely.
And push everyone into electronic systems. And
I mean, look, it's an exciting time, and for me, that's something that the crypto space. I'd love to hear more debate on that particular issue. This whole issue of privacy and anonymity. I think, I've read so much of what Dr. Wright has written on that, and I really get what he's saying. I think there is still that misconception. Probably because of the way he dresses, and he can get a little punchy. It's but I think he so much of what he does talk about is very much privacy centric. So it does surprise me a lot of even today I had a heated debate with one of my buddies when he heard I was talking to you. I think. Look, I hope with my series I can present what is happening in the BTC, BCH, and BSV, and people can then go off and do a bit more looking into the projects themselves. On that note, have you guys got anyone sort of streaming live? Are the guys from the Bitcoin SV channel doing something throughout the conference?
Yes, I know. Shem is planning a bunch of interviews, so he's got an office where he's got set up. Apparently, I haven't seen it, but apparently he reckons this great expansive view over the river. He's going to be doing interviews and live streaming. I believe so, because a lot of people who were planning to come from China have not been able to travel. Coingeek have made the decision that they're going to live stream the entire conference.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Yeah. So if anybody does want to watch the schedule, who's speaking and what they're talking about is up now. And yeah, so have a look through, find what you're interested in, and dial into the live stream.
I'll put a link below for all of that. So that's via Shen's channel, the Bitcoin SV channel, or Coingeek?
Shen's channel is the Bitcoin SV channel on YouTube, and then the Coingeek live stream is separate to that, and that's being run by Coingeek.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll put links to both of those below this video. So yeah, what do you got? It all kicks off tomorrow.
All kicks off first thing tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
There's a couple of announcements straight up of things that I've personally been working on, which I'm looking forward to kind of getting out there. So
I've actually got a chat coming up in a few days with some guy who charges an exorbitant amount of money. He probably, if he sees this, he'll probably back out of it. But he did an analysis of what was happening in the various blockchains, and when he came to BSV, he shat all over it, putting it mildly, saying there was no development. Okay, his video was probably 4 or 5 months old, but having been at day one of the last 2 CoinGeek conferences, I literally walked away with my brain hurting from the highly technical nature, and 400 out and out geeks talking pure tech and development on this blockchain. So I found it quite laughable that somebody is still running around saying there isn't anything happening here, and I'm not quite sure why you seem to be the hated blockchain for some reason by so many people. It's beyond me. I don't get it. You'll have somebody who really loves BTC, and they'll also be a multi-coiner, and they'll have 5 other projects they'll tell me passionate about. BSV gets mentioned and is like the devil's been mentioned for so many of these guys. I'm like, what? Why? I don't get this.
It's because what we're building threatens basically every other project in the crypto space, and I've started basically going with the line that actually, BSV is outside of crypto, and I don't want anything to do with crypto because I see it as a hive of scum and villainy, and it's full of scams. You hear somebody saying, "Oh, I'm so excited about such and such a project."
Yeah.
What do they actually know about the project and the people behind it? You go and look at these things, and there's these faceless people behind a token creation event that takes, like I look at Bitcoin Hex. What the hell was that? That guy took people for like $3.5 million or something.
Well, you're talking about Richard Hart.
Money, and then he's yanked it out and pissed off. That was the fastest exit scam I think I've ever seen.
Well, no, theoretically he hasn't. No, it looked as though he had, but that Ethereum, I believe, has actually been put back into that Hex network. I'm hoping to have a chat with him. He's somebody I actually followed from late 2016. He was a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist, that guy. So quite fascinated to hear why he's gone and done what he's done. I certainly am not running around providing Hex or anything of the sort, but I know some fairly smart guys, or at least who I thought were smart, who do, who are on board there. So yeah, no, I don't think he has exit scams, but it's quite fascinating to try and understand what the hell's going on there. But, look, Brendan, I think the point that you're making there is the problem that we have here is there's been the use of buzzwords of blockchain, of crypto even. It just doesn't, it doesn't apply to so much of what's going on here. Really
and actually,
many subcategories.
One of the biggest things I'm out there saying is, guys, we need to actually stop using the word blockchain. Like about 90% of the times we use it, it's the wrong word to use. The only time we should ever talk about a blockchain is when we're talking about the chain of blocks that encapsulates the ledger. And if we're talking about the ledger, we say the ledger because the ledger is the real innovation. But the blockchain is an abstraction from the ledger. It's just used to timestamp groups of transactions that have been made on the ledger. That's the only thing that the blockchain does. It enables that competitive mining process of timestamping transactions. And so blockchain is the wrong word to talk about when you talk about this technology. And so I immediately turn off when I hear someone talking about blockchain technology. I'm like, well, this guy is, or if I find like I'll listen and hear what they've got to say, and then try to explain to them what their misunderstanding is about that. And if they listen, then I'll keep going. But a lot of people don't know, you know.
Yeah,
Ep
2 of the real cryptos is we've gone round and round in circles for the last couple of weeks trying to find that happy medium. Yeah, it's such a, you know, I like a lot of the people involved in you know, these three Bitcoins. I mean, there's obviously a hell of a lot of other projects out there still. Bitcoin Diamond, I saw shot up 15% in primary. I had no idea what's happening in those projects. I don't even bother looking. But you know, I like a lot of people involved in 3 different projects. And
absolutely nothing happening in any of those projects. That's what's happening.
Number go up.
Not yet. Number go up, but that's not because something is happening.
But numbers mainly going down. So
yeah. And the only reason number goes up is because people get conned into the Ponzi, and they throw cash into that system, and that cash gets yanked out by other people, and number goes back down again.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we always have. I love having a bit of number go up shape just to wind you up. So I know you hate it, but you know, the reality is that I'm getting flooded now with and I think potentially across the board there is a bull run coming. Just basing it on the amount of people that are contacting me, it's starting to fry my head.
I think you're right. I think there is another bull run coming to Bitcoin. The hype, the chatter is out there. You know,
I just wanted to say this on this bull run. This is another This is another number go up bull run. It's not. You know, I like what I see at BSV. I actually see use cases. I see things getting built. You know, in BTC, you could argue, okay, maybe there's this whole store of value. Maybe enough people are starting to believe that for it to become a reality. Who knows? We'll see. But you know, in general, this is still just, you know, there's a couple of good projects out there. Of course, there's going to be out of 10,000 projects that have had some fairly significant funding. Many of them, there will be some proper tech. But in general, yeah, I think we're going to maybe 1, 2, possibly even more big cycles of just price-driven FOMO bull runs. But you know, what do you? Yeah, it feels to me like there's it's bubbling away here at the moment.
I believe that there is a big pump inbound. People are going to start looking at Bitcoin. You know, with what's happening in the world, you've got China's economy is looking pretty shaky with all of this quarantining and the blockage of movement of goods and people around the country. It's really
I'm in Singapore right now, and I can tell you this: it's person I share a house with hasn't left the front door for weeks. I really only go out if it's absolutely necessary for a meeting. I wouldn't say the country's on lockdown, but you know, they've certainly told us that we've had runs on all the supermarket shelves of beer a week or so ago. Getting anything delivered is difficult, but how this must be impacting people's businesses, man, this must be shocking.
Yeah.
So I also, you know, in part, I'm not really scared of this virus, but I do hope that we take it as an opportunity to maybe have a look at the trajectory that humanity's been on for a while here, and had a little bit of a think about how we're doing things. And I think a lot of people that were attracted to the crypto space maybe many came from that sort of thinking of, okay, things need to improve, things could be done a little bit better. And I certainly see a shift in consciousness that might be a little more open to what we're all up to in this space, which is a positive thing. I also think that any major recession will probably have a fairly adverse effect on what we're up to. So yeah, swings and roundabouts, but the world certainly seems primed and maybe open to some positive change, but maybe there's going to be some negative stuff that'll sort of get us to that point.
Yeah, well, it's look. We certainly live in interesting times, and
mildly.
to stand here and try to predict where we're going to be in even 6 or 9 months' time with the current outlook in the world today is completely impossible. And it's kind of, you've just got to put one foot in front of the other and keep going, and whatever the world throws at you, just roll with the punches.
Correct. Yeah. Look, I think for me, I see the positives here. I do feel a change in consciousness amongst everybody. I think the thought that a virus could wreak such havoc on us possibly puts things in perspective. Maybe we're allocating a little too much capital to prevention of terrorism and building our armies and so forth. I think the ability of the technology, a lot of what's happening at BSV, to create a fairer and more equitable playing field for everybody. I think when I first interviewed Dr. Wright, he said, he sees our current system as very much a fraud cycle. And I strongly agree with that. I think that, our current system is broken. So, some incredibly intelligent people in your project, I've seen that firsthand. People running around calling it a scam, just obviously haven't even bothered to. They're obviously sitting on a stack of some other freaking coin, and that's all they care about.
I don't think
I'm over that type of thinking. I don't want to know about it. It's it's just stupid.
I don't think they've actually tried to understand what the value. So when people say store of value, to me, the ledger is the place where the value is stored, and it is your level of accessibility to that ledger. And so the amount of access to the ledger that your Bitcoin buys you, that's the value that it provides. And so only a network that's going to scale that ledger such that you can come in and write tremendous amounts of data with a tiny little bit of money, that's going to achieve that store of value. And one day I expect that the amount of value that we store and manage on the Bitcoin ledger, and this means like with tokens and the equity in huge companies and things, is actually like 10 or even 100 times the actual value of all of the Bitcoin tokens that are being exchanged on the network.
Yeah.
They're just cash. And it doesn't mean they're going to subsume the value of gold and gold is all of a sudden going to go to zero. Yeah. That's just crazy thinking. But it's going to exist alongside all of these other things that have value, and we're going to manage the ownership rights of all of those things on the ledger.
Yeah.
And so that's where the store of value comes from.
Yeah. Look, I mean, as you know what I'm up to in the space, Brendan, I'm hoping to create a media brand that is respected by a number of communities, and I'm putting forward the facts as impartially as I possibly can about what is happening in this space. I think we will see a lot of new people coming in, and obviously the vitriol that comes out from within projects. Of course, that's always going to be there. People are really passionate about what they're doing, and that's great. I thank you to the majority of the people within BSV who have been pretty supportive of what I'm doing. Of course, there's some that simply aren't and just simply cannot accept that I would even discuss another project. But the point is, I don't think there's many people really trying to create the sort of media that I am, that is giving a voice to the different projects. I'm looking at a couple of really good things I like outside of, you know, the three Bitcoins as well. So, you know, it's exciting times for this industry. And I think, you know, I wish I was at your conference. You know, I've been to the last couple. I was really, really impressed. I clearly see there's a hell of a lot of action happening there. And I would encourage anyone that's not aware of BSV and watching this, go and check it out. You know, it's for real. I've seen it firsthand. Some good stuff happening. If you're in this space and you don't know about BSV, then you're missing a trick. So look, on that note, it'll be let's catch up afterwards and have a bit of a debrief on how it all went.
Sure.
Cool. And make sure you meet up with one of my team who's there, Maggie.
I will. I'll look out for you.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent, my friend. Anything else you want to add before we?
Well, I guess I just wanted to say on what you were saying about trying to be objective. Look, I just want to say, yeah, I agree. I've been watching the stuff that you do, not just what you and I, but the other videos that you've been releasing. And I do think that compared to what's out there, you are doing a pretty good job of remaining quite objective. And I want to thank you for that, because it's pretty rare in this industry these days to have someone who's just trying to look at the facts. And so thanks.
Look, I've been, it has been annoying, to be honest, because, you know, there's, you know, I've been making content for a few years now, and even, you know, guys who are clearly making very good income, you know, in the BTC space from promoting what's going on there, their material it comes across as it really is presenting all the facts of this entire industry, but it's so just blind. It's I find it offensive that people are being fed one particular story. Yeah. That when the material is really designed at people new to the space, but you've just been given, bang, this story. You know, that's propaganda. That's not journalism. People, you know, we're talking about people's hard-earned money. They're coming into a space, and it's so difficult to understand. I went through that process myself. You know, I had the wool pulled over my eyes, which is why I actually went out and started making content, because it was, you know, and the next bull run, it'll happen again. So, you know, you've got a very real project. I want to tell people about that. But, you know, equally, I think it's so important they understand where BSV came from. You know, what is it doing now? How is it different to BTC or BCH and Ethereum, etc.? You know, basic level content that is sort of showing people that it's hard to come by. There's hardly anything out there. So that's what I'm doing. On that note, if you are seeing me for the first time, please check out the Real Cryptos series. That's sort of what we're talking about specifically. And yeah, I'm just trying to do as much long form content with the likes of Brennan, who's been immensely helpful in getting me up to speed on what is happening. And thank you once again for doing that, Brennan.
No problem.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, you've got what tomorrow, Thursday, Friday? Election.
Yeah, so tomorrow is Thursday. So yeah, Thursday, Friday at the conference. Then I'm here for the first few days of next week. We're running some workshops with the Bitcoin Association.
Yep.
And then from Thursday, I'm going to be in Berlin, where we have some workshops on the Metanet and building on Bitcoin. And I'm really expecting that to be pretty interesting, because you know, what we were talking about before about the different viewpoints of how you can build a company, where we're going to have, I think, some very robust discussions on that. So
right.
It could be. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a good chance to chill out after Coingeek. So
yeah,
yeah,
awesome.
And then home.
Yeah, well, listen, let's catch up. I'd love to learn more about the Metanet. Yeah,
we can do a chat on that at some point, maybe after I get back to Australia.
Yeah, cool. All right, mate. Well, listen, always a pleasure talking with you. Enjoy the conference, and we'll jump on a video when you get back to Brizzy.
Sounds great, Sean. Thanks very much, mate.
Cheers, fella.
See ya.
Speak to you soon.